Good afternoon. Welcome to AI Would Agree again. Hello, everyone. Special edition today with Dave Plunkett joining us very shortly in the office. Great to see everyone here. Hopefully you're watching us live. If you are, great news. You can ask questions. You can comment live. We will see your comments and questions. Don't write anything rude, please. It'll be great to see everyone interacting with this show today, because me and Dave are big fans of networking and opportunities around partnerships and things like that. So it'll be good to get some good interaction going. If you're watching us live, just drop your notes into the comments. We'll be able to see those, and we'll do our best to answer as much as we can as we get going. Just before I bring Dave into the office, a special shout out today to Bradford's Bakers. Seemingly I was acknowledged by Rachel Alderson, a good friend of mine, for something that I did to help her out. And as a random act of kindness, I've nicely received a very tidy box of some fantastic donuts this morning. So hats off to you guys. There'll be a post for you guys tomorrow, no doubt, to advertise that. But much appreciated, and the donuts are fantastic. Dave, hi. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Yourself? Busy day?
Yeah, busy day, busy year so far. It's going really well. But it seems that that's the case for a lot of people I speak to. There's a lot of positivity, a lot of opportunity about at the moment for those that are looking for it, which is obviously really good to see. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. It feels like January was like a bit of a watershed moment for everyone. Seems to be everyone I've spoken to has said that like there was so much business being discussed and done in January, and lots of positivity about what's coming for this year. So fingers crossed, that's a sign of things to come for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So get straight down to business then, Dave. You're very experienced in terms of building out partnerships and collaborations, strategizing around that, the frameworks that hold that in place, and how to make your business successful through referrals. Now, for anybody watching this from a regular audience, again, we have this situation where I'm sure everybody sat at home going, what on earth has that got to do with my business? I run an insurance business. I run, a contact center. What's that got to do with us? The answer is pretty much everything, in my eyes. And I'll explain why in a moment after you've done a bit of an intro for yourself, Dave. But feel free to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do it, which is probably the most important bit, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, my name's Dave, as you can see on the things that Paul's already introduced. Father to two wonderful kids and an extra one along the way as well. I'm the husband to Kelly, big lover of music and football and all the other various stuff you can see around me. And I'm absolutely passionate about connection. Connection and fun are the two things that I hold most dear in my life. And why I do what I do in terms of helping people with their partnerships, and that's particularly on the strategic side and referral leads, is because I love it, and I think it's just a great way to work. And not only is it a great way to work, but for many people, the lead generation piece in their business is the bit that they least enjoy or they have most problems with. And actually, partnerships is a great way of solving some of that pain. Because if you can rely on trusted parties, whether they're your customers or clients or people you go out and find, to deliver you high quality leads on a consistent basis, that don't haggle around, don't shop on price, and they happen consistently, well, then that makes your business easier and it makes it more fun. And so if I can have fun helping other people have more fun in their business, then that's a big box ticks for me. So that's kind of why I do what I do. And why partnerships was because I've grown a business through them, but then I've ran a business that was absolutely reliant on providing leads to other people through partnership channels. So I've made and probably witnessed many more mistakes along the way of having a fair few successes as well. And so it's just about going, well, you know what? I may not have had partnership manager roles in great big corporates, but I've been on the other end of working with those big corporates, and I know, and smaller businesses too. And so I know what does and doesn't work. And I enjoy giving that value to other people so that they don't make the same mistakes and they can get it right first time, and accelerate their growth. So it's so yeah, that's a bit about me and why I do what I do. So
fantastic. And anybody who follows my posts will now understand completely why me and you get on well together, Dave, because we share a lot of commonality in all of those aspects. I was a believer that in my previous life that to have a job that made me happy meant it had to be very high paid and super successful, and I had to own a super yacht and all of these like ridiculously crazy fascinating things. But actually what it's about is finding something that you're passionate about, where your passion aligns with your energy and your enthusiasm. And I think now that I'm in a position where that's true, like I can see where my thinking before was wrong. Like obviously everybody wants to make a bit of money on the side, or they want to make a fantastic living doing what they do, but it's not necessary to be happy. And that's really interesting. Thanks for bringing that up, Dave. So what I wanted to get to was a lot of the people out there that are watching this, like I said, they're going to be a little bit confused. Like, what's that got to do with your average business? What's that got to do with how they deal with their customers? And how can that translate into some solid learnings for those people as well?
Okay, I think whether you're in a B2B environment or a B2C environment, whether you're dealing with big corporates or whether you're dealing with the everyday man or woman on the street, we all rely on our reputation. Without our reputation, we don't really have anything. And that because that's what forms the basis of everything that I do in terms of referrals and passing leads on. It's all built on trust. So whoever we are, whatever we're doing, we still need to form trust with the key stakeholders in our business. And depending on what your business does, those stakeholders will be different. It will be either a couple of key clients, or it could be much lower touch, but a much broader range of those. And so the fundamental principles of your businesses being ready and set up to gain referrals, the fundamentals of that is based on you having a trusted relationship with someone else. And so that's why no matter what business you're in, there may be a handful of businesses that don't rely on that trust and the building of a relationship, not the particular businesses that I want to be a part of or associate with, but the vast majority of businesses out there rely on trusted relationships. And so that's why I think the fundamentals of what it takes to be a referable business absolutely apply across the board, absolutely across the board. And you may not think that referrals are a big part of your business, but that whole broader brand piece absolutely is. So there will be people where what I do is absolutely bang on relevant. And then there will be people where actually it's more about the principles of what makes you referable that helps build your business value.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dave. So yeah, and that ties in beautifully with a lot of the things that we've been talking about recently around sort of the insurance industry, financial services, businesses, where there's now a lot of consideration being given to building brand loyalty and brand trust with their customers. Insurance have had one of their big leverages taken away in terms of being able to offer discounts on first year insurance rates. And I'm sure a lot of those people now are scratching their heads trying to figure out what customers are going to do on the back of their new plans and their new strategy. And for me, it has to be a big part of what they're going to think about now is how do we retain the customers we've got, as opposed to just cycling through leads, which are expensive. Let's be fair. Like leads have leaped through the air in terms of price in recent months, because the businesses know that they're going to be so much more competition to get hold of them. So from your side of things, Dave, like how would you envisage starting working with somebody who knows that they've got an issue with being referable? What's the best advice that you could give to somebody starting out in their thinking process? How do you guide them towards understanding where their weaknesses are?
Okay, great question. And it probably starts with understanding where their strengths are, actually. Because I speak to lots of people who get the odd referral in without even asking for it and don't know why. And I always say, well, that's a brilliant place to start. If you're getting them without asking for them, well, then that shows you're offering a high level of service, which has to be fundamental. It's putting your customers first is a great way to do that. But then it's understanding what part of what you do is the reason why they do that. Because let's take IFAs for an example, kind of thing. You mentioned the financial space. That's you don't have a unique offering. at all, because there's so many people that do what you do. Well, what's unique about it is there'll be a certain way that you do what you do, and it's tapping into that, because that enables you to then really understand who an ideal referral for you is, because, and particularly in that kind of space, understanding who the ideal target market is really allows people to more easily know who to introduce you to. I speak to so many people who are resistant to niching, to defining their target market down, because they have FOMO, right? But I can serve anyone, and I get that. And when I say to people about niching down, it's not about saying stop working with anyone other than this tiny market segment. It's not about that at all, but it's just about going, if you said to me, I can work with any small business owner, Dave, well, I don't see any at all. I just see a fog of the thousands of small business owners I know. But if you say I work with growing accountants who are typically looking up to 10 members of staff, for example, well, then I immediately can picture those people out, and I'm more likely to refer you. Now, that doesn't mean that that's all you work with. The next month when I catch up with you, you might go, oh, I've just done a really great project with a marketing agency. And that gives me a new set of people to kind of focus on. All right, yeah, I'll introduce you to that person then. And it's about making it really easy for people to refer. So the first thing is understanding who that target market piece is for you. Where do you really hit a sweet spot? And if there's multiple, well, what are those? And just focus on one at a time. Because when you understand that, you make it so people want to refer, right? Like you're a master referrer, you're brilliant at referring, but you get a kick out of it, right? When you know you've made a good introduction, and both people go, thanks, Paul, that was a brilliant introduction. You get a buzz, don't you? Yeah. Exactly. But I speak to so many people that are nervous about asking for referrals because they don't want to be a burden on other people, and I'm like, no, people want to refer. People love it. The reason why people don't refer is one of two, is because if they have to think about it too much. We are all so busy that we're inherently lazy. I don't mean sitting around on a sofa lazy. I mean, if something takes us too much extra brain power to do, we go, right, well, I'll think about that later. And it gets put onto the side list, to-do list. I don't know about yours, my to-do list, my side isn't getting any shorter. And so people want to refer you, but if they don't know how, if it's not quick and simple for them to do it, they won't. And so one of the first things I do with people is like, who are you looking for, and let's remove the blocks of people doing that. And that's normally the thing, is that they're not being clear about who they want to refer to, and they're not asking at the right time or place. There's the perfect time to ask, and a lot of people, that's the bit where people normally do. So it's who are you looking to be referred to, and what's your process around it, so that you don't just forget, really.
I think that ties in quite nicely with what we do here at Modular Analytics Company, in terms of, we quite often work with businesses who know who their customers are, but can't really define what their customers are saying, thinking, or feeling in the conversations that they're having. And that's where we specialize, is helping them get to that granular level of understanding of what's driving their customer contacts and their behaviors, and showing them the way forwards. I can't fix another business's problems for them, but what we can do is say, look, here's where the value is, here's where you should go after. Once you fix this problem, then you can move on. And I guess that's very similar to what you're talking about there, in terms of obviously a different kind of strategy, but very similar in terms of providing that level of granularity so that they can start to make those connections with real quantifiable results. And I think we went through that same process ourselves, right? At one point, we started out 3 years ago as a data science consultancy, and people would ask me, what do you do? I said, well, we help you solve problems. Well, what problems? Well, all of them. If you've got data, we can help you solve problems. All right, but I don't want to tell you my problem because I don't really know you. Oh, okay. And it was a very, very hard conversation. We got better at doing it, but ultimately what we realized was exactly what you've said. Like, if we niche down and build that out as a software solution, we now actually understand that primarily we work with financial services, banking, retail. We've got some other verticals that we want to look at. But now that we've narrowed down on those three, it's very much easier to have that conversation with people like yourself and say, would love to meet. people from insurance sector, for example, who are involved in contact centres. And it drives the business forward 100%.
I love what you said about as well, that tied really neatly in with something I was going to say actually about where you help people understand what their customers are saying and the clients are saying, because that's the key thing. That's the other key thing in you being more referable as a business, is rather than just asking for referrals, and this works really well with strategic partners, right, where you're working with another brand to get these leads on a consistent basis, and this works really well in the banking and financial space actually. But it's giving, I see so many people set up partnerships, but then they don't provide their partners with the support of when and how to refer them. So it's things like, think about what your customer might be saying that's the trigger for the referral in. So are they complaining about have they got too many pensions in different places? Don't think about what's written on your brochure about what your company is. Think about what your target market might actually be saying on a day-to-day basis, because that's the trigger for someone to go, oh right, yeah, I know who you should speak to, because that's the everyday language that makes it easy for us to do it. And then the next step up from that even is, and this is where you're really looking strategically with people, is are there moments in time, are there triggers or moments in time, either in someone's business life, so taking on staff, getting an office, downscaling, or personal life, where your product or service is absolutely relevant? Because if it is, well, then how can you actually build yourself into your partner's processes? Because if it's a true partnership and there's value all round in people making these cross referrals, well, then being ingrained into someone's onboarding process or exit process or whatever it may be, actually ingraining you into the process means that it just happens, and it's a true partnership that not only generates you inquiries and value, but should offer value to the audience and actually offers value to your partner, and that it enhances their service as well. And that understanding of the customer, which is what obviously you help businesses with massively. When you really understand what your customer says and thinks, there's so much you can do with that. So much you can do with that data. It's
I think there's something in that around what I was originally going to see on the back of that I guess the best partnerships happen, and therefore the best customers arrive at the point where your service is the most useful to them at that time. So, to your point, if you provide financial services and somebody's moving house, that's a great time to be involved in that situation, because they're looking at changing anyway, changing all the habits up, and it's people traditionally take on new business, like new services at that point in time. But actually, where I was going to go with that was, that's kind of how we help position a lot of our services that we help other businesses with, is like identifying those moments when, if you look at a customer experience journey for insurance, for example, the only time that they ever really deal with their insurer is when they sign up at one end and when they leave at the other end, or if they make a claim somewhere in the middle, which is a negative experience. Like nobody wants to have to make a claim on their insurance. It's awful. And for me, being able to say, okay, we've done this experiment, we've trialed outbound contacting people in the middle of this with some value add about a new service that we provide, and actually here's the impact of that. Now that's something that a lot of businesses will struggle to quantify traditionally, is when you've had that extra contact, how do you quantify what the business results are from that contact? And therefore they won't do it. But then that then means that you're relying on that initial onboarding experience a year ago, or retrospectively dealing with somebody who's already really made their mind up to leave. So I think you're right. Like, I think the best relationships that we have are businesses that interact with our consumers, our vendors, our customers at the point where they're most likely to need our services. So my question for you, Dave, will be like, how do you go about finding those partners? Is there an easy way? Is there a trick that you can use? Or is it just a case of really being aware?
So there is absolutely an element of just being opportunistic and being aware of opportunity. Okay. And that's a whole nother subject, right? I've got my first book's going to be written by the end of by May. And then my second book's actually going to be all around opportunism, because I find it fascinating. You're clearly an opportunist. Like, you get it. You can spot those. You can join the dots. You can do all that sort of stuff. And I just find it inherently, and it can be a curse as well as a blessing, right? Because I need to say no. I need to say no more. It's just that everywhere. But from a practical sense, how you go and find those, if you find those partners, is there's two things we're going to touch on here, and there's something that I call the real why. And the real why someone wants to partner with you, and it's not to do with any commercial arrangement you might give. That may need to be in place because it ticks the box, and it's the thing that keeps the FD happy and everything else, and it keeps it a proper, sensible business partnership. But the real reason why someone will get excited about partnering with you and ingrain you into their processes and refer you consistently is because there are people out there where the value that you provide to them and to their audience, it does it in such a way that actually enhances their audience's reputation with them, or it might directly enhance their service. It might, either enhances their standing or directly impacts their ability to do their job with their audience. And they're the people that you want to partner with, because it makes the most sense for them to want to keep referring you, because they get benefit from it as well. And so once you've really understood that piece, it can then become much easier. Because I always say that if you're making an outreach to a partner and it feels like you're pitching, then stop, because you are. Like, you should never have to pitch a partnership opportunity. It's an opportunity, right? And if you're doing it on something like LinkedIn, I would always say, read it out loud to yourself. Once you've written that message, read it, physically say the words out loud. And if you're saying them, you go, oh, this is horrible. Well, then you know you've got it wrong. But another little trick on that piece is that many people I know, when they're making their outreach, they will focus on the value that they will offer to the partner's audience, right? And the trouble with that is it just feels a little bit like all you're interested in is selling to the audience. So when you're making partner outreaches for people, you should always focus on the value that you're going to deliver to them as a partner. And it's only a subtle difference, but it's a world apart, an absolute world apart. And in terms of getting those partners, wow, it's come up a couple of times. I would look at introductions. Even if you don't have those people directly within your network, there will be people who do. And whereas people might not always be that keen to give direct referrals for sales, because they know someone's going to get sold, so they're only going to make that referral if it is the right time. If you're asking people for introductions to partners, well, people will do those all day long because they're easy to make. There's no sell involved here. And that's how I always say to people, that's a great way to start finding new partners, because then you start building up partner case studies and testimony, and you build from there. So they're probably my two top tips: is make sure you focus on the value you deliver to the partner, and leverage your network.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think there's plenty of scope to kind of take some cross-sector learning on that, in terms of, if you are working with customers directly, like, bear that in mind when you're looking for, resellers or partners within the business, like insurance brokers, those sorts of businesses. Like, stop thinking about what it is that you can directly deliver to the customers, but think about how you can benefit each other. And if you're an insurance broker looking to speak to the insurance companies, the same way the other way around, what can you deliver to those guys that will help improve what they're already doing, not how can you help their customers. And I think it's kind of true that, like, you pointed out really well, like, we're both opportunists, Dave, and I appreciate not everybody thinks that way, not everybody feels that way. When I go downstairs and tell my missus some of the stuff that I've been doing around networking, and she just sits and looks at me like I've got three heads sometimes. It's like, but that'll never work, Paul. And yet time and time again, it does. I would challenge anybody who sits there and thinks that virtual networking is for networking nerds and people who just have nothing better to do with their time than to sit networking. Like, I would challenge you to spend some time, quality time, give it a chance, give it a try, and see what actually comes of it, because there are some amazing relationships that I've built that in initial conversations seem to have nothing in common with my customer profile. You know, they weren't. I wasn't trying to sell to them. I was genuinely trying to help them with what they were trying to achieve. And even just last week, there's been a few conversations where I've helped people and I've made maybe 5 or 6 introductions, to your point, Dave. Sometimes I feel like I should just be saying no because I've got a list of emails I need to send out for introducing people to each other. But I love it. And the response it gets opens doors. And then all of a sudden you can have a really frank conversation with people. And, you know, you find out much more about them than what you did in the initial conversation. And all of a sudden you're 3 steps away and you've found an absolute pool of people who are really interesting to talk to that can deliver business to you. So I appreciate networking is not for everyone. And that's why some of us do it and some of us don't. But if you're intrigued and you're conscious about wanting to try it, I would absolutely give it a go. Speak to me or Dave if you're short of enthusiasm or you're a little bit anxious about doing it, because we'll absolutely help you get through that. So we've got 4 minutes left on the conversation, Dave. And I think, to be honest, I think you've added a pile of value for everybody already on this conversation. I think for me, what I would like to hear is like, if you could wave a magic wand and influence the general strategy of the businesses that you most often work with, what is the one thing that is the hardest to get right for them that you would love to wave a magic wand and be able to kind of fix instantly? What would make the biggest difference to your target market?
Oh, that's a...
I did promise I wouldn't throw you any curveballs. I apologize.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah. You know what? So there's 2 people there's 2 kind of markets that I work predominantly with. One is growing service businesses who are kind of looking for the next stage of growth and don't want the hustle. They want to leverage their credibility. And for those guys, often it's really understanding the value that they can deliver to a partner, particularly if they're looking to partner upwards. I see so many people that are kind of hesitant around, well, they're a huge man, why are they going to want to partner with me? And actually, the reason why they want to is because you're more agile, you're more creative, you're not encumbered by all that stuff. And even if I sometimes do work with individuals, like coaches and consultants, and it's the same thing again, is there's a reason why people want to work with you, and it's so the way you do what you do and your inherent value. Don't ever downplay that piece. Be respectful of where they are in the chain, but don't downplay your importance in that. And I see that come through. I see that come through quite a bit. The other space I do work in is in the funded startup space, if you see what I mean. So people with product maturity, they're ready to go to market. So they're kind of on that, starting the kind of the scale up journey. And for those, yeah, you know what? It's the understanding of getting it right first time. There's a reason why I do what I do, is because I've made the mistakes or I've witnessed them, but people make them time and time again. And there's probably just that, I think, in that space, and I can understand it because they've got big funding in and they need to get going. And there's sometimes that it's about the volume. It's about signing partners up. It's not necessarily about how do we help our partners engage with their audience once they're signed up. And so it would probably be, the one would be just a bit more of an awareness and focus on, it's not just about getting partners, it's about actually activating and leveraging partners, which is, that's probably it.
Which is interesting, because that last bit really ties in with what was saying, like in terms of, you know, making your customers loyal and adding lifetime value is, you know, don't just rely on initial contact and the end happening. Focus on what's happening in the meantime, keep people informed, add value, don't keep trying to sell them. You know, we're going to be talking about outbound conversations in next week. It's one of the round tables that we've got coming up on Tuesday. So feel free to jump in on that if anybody wants to come along to that. There's an event with registration. I'll put the link in the comments. But, you know, the first outbound round table is going to be around outbound sales, because that's all anybody ever thinks of. When somebody says, you know, we're going to build out an outbound department in a contact center, or it's going to be sales. Well, what if it wasn't? What if you did service? What if you did outbound value add? What if you communicate with your customers on a regular basis? but not just with the end goal of keeping them as a customer inside, but actually enriching their lives and adding value to them. What difference would that make to things? So I think if you can apply that across the board, then you kind of, what works for you in that context, Dave, it would work really well with most businesses.
Yeah, good.
Fantastic. We're just hit over the 30 minutes, so we're gonna draw to a close there. But Dave, thanks very much for coming along. Apologies for the curveball at the last moment, but it's good to see you thinking on your feet. It's been fun. It's been fun.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Awesome. Anybody who wants to sign up to the newsletter for the AI Would Agree events, I'll pop the link in the comments for that as well. It would be great to see you all at the next one. We do this every Thursday at 3 p.m. Next week, we've got William Carson from Ascensos looking at his experiences with retail. I'm sure many of you know William already, but he's a fantastic personality. It would be great to see you all there. Dave, hopefully I'll see you there as well. Thanks very much for your contribution. Take care.
Cheers, Paul.
Bye.